Well, I mean, just looking at the movies, if you were to ask me, what keeps me up at night, well, my first response would be I always sleep well at night. But I think if I were to lose sleep at night, it would be on the supply of films, not the demand. And I think what we've proven in the last few years is that our audiences never left us. Mm-hmm. They just want more movies.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Loria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. This week, once again, joined by my colleague and co-host Rebecca Pahle, deputy editor at Box Office Pro. And in this week's episode, we are going to be going the latest quarterly earning reports in the world of theatrical exhibition. We've got updates from Cinemark, Cinepolis, and Cineplex in this episode. And in our feature interview, we have a special conversation that Rebecca Pahle had with View International Chief Executive Officer Tim Richards. That's coming up at the second half of this episode. And of course, topping off the conversation, we are going to be going over our final forecast for Dune Part 2 coming out this weekend, and finally getting us out of the release calendar doldrums, a highly anticipated new title coming to a theater near you. Rebecca, I'm excited. I finally found tickets, but it might not matter because I think we're going to a secret screening of this on Wednesday.
I'm so excited.
Do we know that yet? The screening would have passed by the time this episode's up there. Yeah. For our listeners, Regal is reopening its Times Square location.
If they kept it open, it would just had tarp and construction stuff kind of all over.
It's going to be the relaunch, the redesign. So we're excited to see that location. I haven't seen it in a while. I think last time I was there was for the Napoleon press screening back in November or October. Anyway, they're having an event. There's a secret screening. It's on Wednesday. Rebecca and I both think it's Dune Part 2. I think it's going to be really funny if it's not.
Well, I don't know what else it could be, but I am just excited that Dune is finally coming out. It feels like, February. My goodness. I'm similarly in the situation of glad that we are potentially / hopefully doing this screening on Wednesday because, that search for premium tickets,
it's a hot
the search
ticket.
Is real. Daniel, can I ask you, how in the heck is this our job, writing about this industry and writing about box office forecasts and pre-sales, and we don't buy our tickets for these things earlier in advance?
We should be better about this. Yeah, I finally just found the first decent ticket for a public IMAX screening for Dune Part 2 in New York City. I have to wait till next Wednesday to see it in IMAX. We might have already seen it by then. Again, we'll figure it out. But if you want to hear our reactions to Dune Part 2, don't forget to tune in next week, where we will not only be speaking about the sequel, we'll have two special guests, friend of the podcast, Max Every, and the author of the oral history of David Lynch's Dune is going to be joining us to speak a little bit about the box office for the sequel and going over everything in the world of Dune at the movies. And we have the one interview we've been fighting to have on this podcast for months. Rebecca, you got them. You found them. They're coming next week.
Our VP of Sales, Patricia, found them. So shout out to Patricia once again for finding us the team that designed the Dune 2 popcorn bucket.
I can't wait.
We put it out into the universe, and we spoke with them earlier today.
Yes, everything you ever wanted to know about the Dune 2 popcorn bucket, but were afraid to ask. You'll hear us ask those questions in next week's podcast. But all of that is coming in the future. Rebecca, we've got news to go over and financial reports to read. A lot of numbers.
Better than news, financial reporting.
I know.
It's wonderful.
But let's do the news before we just drone on talking about percentages and EBITDA, our favorite thing to report on. On the news side of things, cool little story that happened last week. Filmmaker Jason Reitman, part of a coalition of 35 filmmakers that have just acquired Westwood's historic Village Theater, an iconic movie palace, 93-year-old history operating as a movie theater here in Los Angeles. That's going to continue doing a mixture of first-run films and repertory programming in the future that includes 35 millimeter, 70 millimeter, and digital projection. Great news for movie lovers in the Los Angeles area. Good news, filmmakers coming together, buying a historic movie theater, standing up for exhibition. I love to see stories like this. It's always sad when we have a historic movie palace going dark. That won't be happening with the Village Theater over in Westwood.
The only thing that I'm sad about is that we're on the wrong coast and we'll probably never be able to go. But I would not be able to give up my New York art house cinemas for anything. So at the end of the day, do you know the Metrograph is doing an upcoming series on movies about or involving pigs?
No, that's what the curation team's doing over there.
And apparently at Film Forum starting this week, there's a Japanese horror film series, which I hate that all the good rep stuff is happening right when movies start coming out again. You think they could have done it a little earlier. But that is to say, they are screening Godzilla several times. So you could see it for the first time on the big screen.
Los Angeles, eat your heart out. You can't get anywhere near us in repertory programming. But theaters going up. Repertory programming still kicking. First run titles getting an injection of adrenaline this weekend with the release of Dune Part 2. Our latest forecast, which you can read over at boxofficepro.com, has an opening weekend range between $65 and $80 million, spurred on significantly by advance pre-sales in premium formats. And the domestic theatrical run, we have a range here between 165 to 215 million. That's where we expect Dune Part 2 to end up. It's hard to come up with this one, of course, because Dune Part 1 was released day and date on HBO Max. HBO Max no
its
longer
box office
exists.
Almost does not count.
It doesn't. Yeah, that's part of the asterisk void in terms of reporting box office when nothing made sense. Fortunately, this one's going to be theatrically exclusive for a while, and we've both got tickets. I'm excited.
Are you going to buy one of the popcorn tubs if you end up seeing it at an AMC? Where is your ticket to see it?
It's going to be at the AMC Lincoln Square in that nice IMAX. They've got IMAX 70 millimeter. So I'm going on film. I'm looking forward to it. And I do have to say, I also have a ticket to see it in Dolby Cinema. Clearly, I've just exposed myself on re-upping my Ellis subscription to be able to finance 2 premium tickets in a week. But I am going to see it in Dolby Cinema in that cinema location as well. I'm really excited. I actually made it to the movies for the first time last weekend as like a paying moviegoer. Rebecca, I saw Drive Away Dolls, the new movie from Ethan Coen.
You were one of decently small number of people, but it looks like it's just very, kind of small film, small scale, small scope. Definitely. What did you think of it? That was the box office. That was the box office.
Yeah, that was it. Unfortunately, the theatrical rollout for that was also It only, I think, made like 2,200 screens. It was a weird sort of moderate rollout from Focus Features.
Yeah, I think it came in at down at spot number 9. It came in underneath Wonka on around the same number of screens.
That's not good. But the movie wasn't very good either. Sorry. I love my Coen brother or brothers, plural or singular. I love what they do. But this one, hey, swing and a miss. It happens sometimes. Let's move on and go over the latest earnings reports here because there is a lot of news and weird acronyms with financial information that we need to go over. Let's start with Cinemark, the number 3 circuit in the nation, reporting its Q4 figures. What did things look like for the circuit based out of Plano, Texas?
So for Cinemark, what we're seeing kind of on a macro level, obviously, is continued growth since the year that we don't want to talk about, the P word, all that good stuff. For full year 2023, the circuit owned $3.1 billion total revenue, which is up a full 25% from last year and within 7% of the last full pre-pandemic year, 2019. They also achieved their all-time high food and beverage. My goodness, not food and vegetables, so they are in Texas, and Texas stuff loves pickles in movie theaters. Their all-time high F&B per cap.
Can you buy vegetables in Texas that aren't fried? Like, is that something they do there? Do they even sell them?
If they're pickled, maybe, yeah.
Maybe if they're pickled.
Slathered in cheese.
There we go. That queso sauce. I'm not going to knock it. That's fine. We love our friends in Texas. We're just playing somewhere.
Oh, no. I cover anything in cheese. I'll eat it. But Daniel, as you know, within the past, was it last year, 2 years ago, there was a changeover in leadership at Cinemark with longtime CEO Mark Zorati stepping down and being replaced by Sean Gamble, who at the time was the CFO of the company. So one of the things that was talked about during this earnings call is, just from the way we've been looking at things, from our perspective, Daniel, the last few years, it's been kind of a rebuilding period for Cinemark. They launched a very big rebranding effort, kind of a, new CEO getting the house in order sort of thing. That did prove, per the numbers we got on the earnings call, to be quite effective. The loyalty program, the United States version of that, went up nearly 20%, LATAM more than 45%. Web and app traffic up over 30%, like double engagement on social media. So yeah, the efforts on the branding and communication side are definitely paying off, and they are kind of moving back into growth mode. Obviously not anything, particularly specific, but he says, quote from Sean Gamble, is that we've reactivated the development pipeline. So yeah, they're going to be getting into newer, bigger, and better projects. And that actually includes opening 2 cinema entertainment centers, I believe, by the end of 2024.
Cinemark's getting into the cinema entertainment business. Wow.
Snuck that in there.
Everyone's jumping in. We were seeing B&B going to the cinema entertainment center business, Megaplex over in Utah. Now Cinemark. This has to be the trend of the year so far.
God bless that Texas real estate. Actually, the Cinema Entertainment Center played an interesting role as well in the earnings call from Cineplex, our neighbors to the north. So one of the things that has really helped Cineplex thrive over the years is that it's an extremely diversified company. They obviously have cinemas. They have cinema entertainment centers. They distribute Lionsgate movies in Canada. They have a digital sign company. They do a lot of stuff. One of those things, as you know, Daniel, was Player One Entertainment Group, which basically makes some of the arcade games and stuff.
Yeah, it was a really interesting business decision they had some years ago, right? So they had cinema entertainment centers, some standalone, just family entertainment centers.
Yeah, some without cinemas at all, yeah.
So they went into this out-of-home entertainment destination strategy up there in Canada. And then they acquired a company that made the video game machines for those centers to not only operate within their own centers, they also sold or leased some of these arcade games.
So they're benefiting off of other cinemas. Yeah, really embracing this concept.
Are they still part of that? I thought Player One was up for sale. Did that get acquired by somebody?
That is what I was leading into. It's not official yet, legal hoops to go through. They've announced a agreement to sell Player One Amusement Group to someone called Open Gate Capital. I don't really know who that is or what that means for Player One AG moving forward, or who's going to take over that side of things in a more specific sense, but it does free up more cash for Cineplex. They're going to be investing in new cinema entertainment centers and new family entertainment centers, and they're in a really good position to do so. It was also Cineplex's biggest year for international programming, which all told delivered 10% of their annual box office revenues. Daniel, I actually got a chance to speak with Ellis Jacobs, CEO of Cineplex, on the heels of that quarterly earnings call. And that is one of the things that we discussed, the role of international content, whether that's, Bollywood content is certainly something that has seen a number of very successful films released cinematically in Canada over this last year. The role of international releases in Cineplex's overall distribution strategy.
Yeah, the international programming is something that we are very focused on, and over COVID, we basically spent a considerable amount of time on our data. We have, I think, one of the best loyalty programs in the business in the world. Mm-hmm. And, when we first set it up, people said to me, what do you need a loyalty program given your market share? It wasn't about that. It was about the data, and we basically know what our guests like, what they want to see, what they want to eat. And why did we do so well on international is because we can use that data to know where these individuals from, what they like to see. Mm-hmm. And we even use artificial intelligence because we scan the countries where the movies are coming from and look at what social media discussions are in those countries and how to play it, where to play it, and what the show times are.
Yeah. And Daniel, something that Ellis mentioned in that quote was actually something that, as our listeners were here later in the episode, which also came up in my interview with Tim Richards at View, the use of AI by both of these cinema chains, obviously a very big buzzword of a lot of, a lot of possibilities in pretty much every industry, I would imagine. For Cineplex specifically, Daniel, as you know, they have their loyalty program is like combined with a bunch of other large Canadian companies. So they get a ton of data on what their customers, or maybe even people who are not their customers or who are very rare moviegoers. They get a lot of data on what they're interested in and are able to translate that, the use of AI, to a very specific programming that allows them to really maximize the revenue they can earn from, pockets across the country attending these international films.
We have, like I said, the great data. So we are able to market, to you in a very specific way. I call it, exact marketing instead of carpet bombing. And don't repeat this, but I'll give you a great example. Remember the movie Hit 2?
Oh, yeah.
So when Warner Brothers was releasing the movie, I had the director and producer come to Canada. They did an event because the movie was filmed in Canada and in certain places. And the tough part for Canada is we don't usually do well with horror movies. So we opened the movie and it was kind of okay. Then what we did is we basically sent a notification to everybody that saw the first one but didn't see the second one. The next weekend the numbers got stronger, and then we went back to everybody that saw a horror movie that didn't see it. By the time the movie ended, it was the highest percentage of a horror film that played in Canada.
So, yeah, Daniel, a really successful data strategy for Cineplex, a really successful showing for international content. Average international content takes 4% of box office for North American chains. Cineplex, that's 10%. Certainly something that helps them and would help any chain weather a period where not so much is coming out at the box office, which thankfully, thank goodness, is almost over for us here with the release of Dune.
Now, we know that Cineplex isn't the only major Canadian circuit, even though they are the largest. They've got competition from Landmark Cinemas of Canada, which is owned by the Belgian super circuit Cinepolis, a multinational chain with cinemas in a number of countries around the world. Rebecca, they also reported their financials from 2023. Looks like the numbers in the box office were up by 21% across the entire Cinepolis network of theaters compared with those numbers in 2022. That was driven by a 20.6% bump in attendance last year as compared to 2022, and an increase in sales per visitor. So we're seeing a very nice rebound in terms of big multinational circuits of this scale. And looking at some of the biggest headlines from 2023 from the Cinepolis Group, the chain saw 6 new IMAX screens open in Canada, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, and Spain last year. And they also signed an agreement to continue their third-party PLF screens by bringing in 21 new ScreenX auditoriums, with the first 5 of those, Rebecca, opening this very month. So Cinepolis, another big investor in the CJ4D Plex panoramic screen concept. For our listeners that don't know what ScreenX is, it's basically a 270-degree screen, which is a triptych of screens. Think Cinerama in the digital era. That's essentially what ScreenX is bringing to the table. Great expansion of that concept for Cinepolis.
Yeah, Daniel. And they're also, as we learned from the earnings call, focusing on elevating their standard experience as well as providing the premium experience. They are rolling out a laser projection, as are many other chains in North America and globally. 59% of their global screen count currently is equipped with sustainable laser projection, with 75 additional installations planned for 2024. And yeah, a lot of premier VIP seats and Laser Ultra in North America, which includes, Daniel, as you mentioned, Landmark Cinemas of Canada and the United States chain MJR Cinemas.
Yeah, great growth, great recovery, positive signs that we're hearing from these earnings calls. Obviously, we are expecting a down year in 2024, but let's not resign ourselves to that fate just yet. We've got an important recovery starting this weekend with the release of Dune Part 2. And keeping things on the positive side, Rebecca, you also had a very good interview with the current CEO of View International, Tim Richards, going over some of the latest updates going into that company, another big multinational circuit. Now, View did have an important new executive hire, adding Chief Operating Officer Matt Eyre, a Regal and Cineworld veteran, to its core group of executives. So an exciting time for View as it continues growing. It's adding more veteran leadership. Rebecca, you go into a lot more detail of what's going on at View International. That's coming up in the feature interview part of this episode just after the break. And of course, for those of you wanting to hear the latest earning reports from other companies in the sector, including IMAX, Marcus Corp, and AMC, wait for us a couple of weeks. We're still waiting for those calls to happen. This is just an update of everything we have in so far. And so far, so good, right?
So far, so good. Yeah, the general update from Tim Richards was positive, as you'll hear. Talked a lot about the use of AI in programming and just a general overview of the industry as we get closer and closer to CinemaCon, which kind of makes me nervous to say because that means we have an issue to finish, but that's neither here nor there.
And that is coming up right after the break. Rebecca Pahle's interview with Tim Richards, the Chief Executive Officer of View International.
Well, I think right now, looking at 2024, there's some great movies coming out this year, but not enough of them. And I think we're really feeling the brunt of the strikes in real time. And so I look at this year, there's unfortunately nothing we can do. It is going to be a horrible, horrible year. But there is that light coming out at the end of this year. And in 25 and 26, there's a big wave of movies coming, which keeps all of us very excited about the future. So because there's nothing we can do this year, I look at this year as a foundation laying year. This is the time to really make sure that we have everything in place to capitalize on the movies that are coming at the end of this year and in 25. So we are spending our time refurbishing. We're rolling out a lot of recliner seats in cinemas. And with staffing, we're looking at what changes we need to make sure we got the right team in place and so forth. And Matt brings, he's one of the most highly respected operators in the world. I mean, he's been around for 35 years. And, our paths crossed when we were both at Warner Brothers together many, many years ago. And, he is someone who just loves what he does and happens to be very, very good at it. So I think having Matt join the team that we have right now will further strengthen our team. And, most of the team have been with me since I started the company, and we got a little bit of kind of new blood coming in too, which has been great.
Yeah, that's absolutely essential. I mean, it's interesting framing 2024 as a year to kind of step back, because we've had, that was how a lot of people, and I think rightly so, treated 2020, 2021 like there's not much we can do. That was our first period of kind of reassessment. And then we jump back into a period with more movie releases. Not enough, but more. And now we get a second shot at that kind of break score. I mean, you could, I feel like there's a lot to be learned from last year, from Barbie, from Barbenheimer when it comes to marketing. I mean, View's always been pretty good at marketing in terms of innovation. It's not just the same, like, here's a clip the studio put online. What are your thoughts on, you said updating seating and staffing. What are the other maybe priorities moving forward this year that are, softer priorities, I guess, maybe not related to buying screens or, upgrading technology and things like that?
Well, I think, just looking at the movies, if you were to ask me, what keeps me up at night, well, my first response would be I always sleep well at night. But I think if I were to lose sleep at night, it would be on the supply of films, not the demand. And I think what we've proven in the last few years is that our audiences never left us. They just want more movies. And if you look at the films that have been released, we have broken so many records. You look at last year alone, with Avatar being the third highest grossing movie of all time. You had Super Mario Brothers, the largest animation film ever. Barbie, the third largest non-sequel. It goes on and on and on. And then you have like Oppenheimer. The fact that Oppenheimer did $950 million. It's an extraordinary movie. Probably, arguably one of Chris Nolan's best movies.
Only he could make a movie that's like 3 hours of people talking. So riveting. Yeah. But it is 3 hours of people talking.
Yeah, it is. It's a biopic. And the fact that it did $950 million, anyone who questions whether older, mature audiences have returned just needs to look at that number. And you look at in 22 when Belfast was released, Belfast at the time was one of the highest grossing black and white films ever. And, it did 16 million pounds in the UK. And, that was a story about an autobiographical story about a 10-year-old growing up in the Troubles in Ireland, that did those kind of numbers. And then it was beaten by this first-time director in Italy with, I can never pronounce the name of it. It's always tomorrow's, Domani. But in any event, it was an extraordinary film on a tough subject. But you look at the numbers that it has done in Italy, and that's an older, mature audience. And it's also very female slanted because it's a very, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's a very tough film about domestic abuse. But it's done in a very life is beautiful kind of way, but with a tough message behind it. So older audiences, you look at Ticket to Paradise, and even recently, you look at the numbers that Poor Things have done, and there's no shortage of, extraordinary.
And we wouldn't be talking about it if it had just come out on streaming somewhere.
Yeah.
No way.
Absolutely.
No way.
Absolutely right. And then you look at, the kind of event programming, Taylor Swift came out of nowhere, the highest grossing concert film ever. So, there's no shortage of evidence on the demand side. And that's why I think I'm particularly bullish on going forward, which has not answered your question at all.
No, I just wanted to come. Five Nights at Freddy's, that shocked me. That's what people say, Gen Z doesn't want to come to the movies. Gen Z came out and saw this movie that they could have seen on their phone.
But Smile. Horror as a genre has really been outperforming in the last couple of years. Maybe it's kind of a statement of where we all are after the pandemic, but it has been really interesting to see the numbers that horror have done. But I think it's evidence, and particularly with local films across Europe, which that is one of the benefits of an international operator that you don't see domestically, where the consumer is kind of really focused on Hollywood and not just Hollywood plus Italian or German or Polish or
Dutch Italian films. Filmmakers didn't have a strike that shut everything down.
So now things that we are doing, I think outside of the physical side right now, we've really been highly focused on our customer's journey and really looking at our investment in digital and how we can really help with new technologies to make their experience easier and quicker and more enjoyable. And so we're looking at and testing a whole bunch of new initiatives right now to try and streamline that experience. Pricing and our use of AI have what have been really driving the successes that we've been experiencing across Europe in the last couple of years. And AI in particular is something that, we were a global leader. That we started with AI 8 years ago. We've been doing this for quite a while now. It took us 2 years to build the model, 53 models in beta, until we realized that we were really onto something special. And it is a classic AI interpretive model that is a little bit better today than it was yesterday.
It'll be a little better tomorrow.
Yeah. And as a consequence, factually, we play close to 50% more movies than our competitors do, because our AI knows what people like around each one of our cinemas. We know if there's an Asian group that wants to watch Bollywood. We know if there's a Turkish community. We know if there's an older audience that want more mature films. The AI has that data and programs our screens accordingly. And, if you look at any of our cinemas, the programming, you can see it. I mean, it is, even when I saw this number, I didn't believe it at first, but 46% of the films that we screen are in foreign language. 46%. That is our AI. And that is one of the most incredible tools that we've been using for a long time now.
That's
so we continue to invest.
And that's so interesting because, you can think of all the uses of AI in terms of, streamlining marketing, in terms of organizing showtimes with programming. I think there's maybe a fear in some corners. You hear AI doing film programming and you're like, oh no, robots just, you're putting in data and they're spitting out telling you what to do. And there's still people involved in this process. It's still curated.
No, for sure.
It's a benefit to programming. It doesn't replace it.
Yeah, we don't kind of plug it in on January 1 and then do some help with it at the end of the year. No, it's constant, but that's what makes it so effective. It's exactly that.
So the strikes are over. Knock on wood, there's not going to be an AMPTP that'll once the production cycle kind of gets back into the swing of things, as you said, 2025 moving forward, we're in a much better place in terms of just the amount and the diversity of titles that we're going to see. Do you think, even without the strike in the equation, how do you feel about the film mix that you're getting, especially because you are so diverse in programming all these, international films, foreign language titles, like mid-range films or those films that aren't blockbusters and that don't need to open to 100 million? What are your thoughts on the mid-range film, I guess?
Well, I think, again, even with the mid-range films, I think it's very much a question of, success. Well, not a question, but, success breeds success. And we've seen that in all of our markets where the local and independent, small and mid-range films were a little bit slower to return to the market. And I think there was a bit of a concern on, was this a subscription issue? Was this audience now watching those films at home? And I think you just need to look at the numbers right now for all of those films. And I know we're in the award season right now with award season films, but notwithstanding that, there's an extraordinary number of very, very high quality, small crossover art films and mid-range films right now that have done really well. And I think, there's been a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers who are looking at that and are thinking, this is the way, the old model of releasing and getting some attention through a big screen experience and then using that as a catalyst for home entertainment after is there and remains there.
Essentially treating the theatrical window not in the exclusivity window, but the theatrical experience as part of the marketing campaign for the later life of the picture. And it's like, you know what? People are still paying for the tickets, butts are still in seats. I say that's great.
Well, and the thing is too, is that kind of expression alongside of, where the engine that drives all the ancillary revenue streams is close to 100 years old, and it hasn't changed. And I think during the pandemic, all the studios had an opportunity to try a different model. And, I think, the learnings coming out of that is that the losses weren't tens of millions, they were hundreds of millions. And filmmakers and talent do not they don't dream of making a movie for a small screen. They, like the rest of us, like to enjoy a film on a big screen with others socially. So that hasn't changed.
Yeah. I mean, just look at Warner Brothers 2021 slate, and well, there you go.
Yeah, but I think, Jason Kilar, when he was kind of running the studio at the time, he was ex-Hulu. He alienated everyone, and he was obsessed with subscription service at all costs, to the point where, he announced, as you just mentioned, that all their films would be released theatrically. Fortunately, Warner Brothers under David Zaslav are the way they used to be, and they've been, a huge friend to the industry, and they've produced some incredible movies. You don't have to go too much further than Barbie alone. But it's not just about Barbie. They're giving us a full slate of films, which has been really exciting. Well, look, I think the sobering realities are, we have gone through as an industry an extraordinarily difficult time. And, I think it's been made even more difficult because in 2019, we set box office records worldwide. We as a company broke all records. We as a company broke all records again at the end of our first quarter and to end of February in 2020. We were not a broken industry. And for us, we weren't a broken company or a broken team. And suddenly life stopped. If things had been really difficult, it would have maybe made it a little bit easier. But when you go through, we've gone through in the last 4 years on the back of a record-breaking run, made it even that more difficult. And, the fact is that, a lot of companies have restructured. People have lost huge amounts of money. Investors, shareholders, management have lost massive amounts of money. And
there have been industry-wide layoffs. Just looking at what's happening to marketing teams across on the studio side and the exhibition side. I'm like, it's tough.
And then we started to have a fragile recovery. People were starting to feel good about things. Barbenheimer came out, blew everybody away. And then WGA went on strike and SAG-AFTRA went on strike. And basically, everybody talks about the 6-month period. And it wasn't 6 months because it wasn't formally ratified until December. And production didn't really start until the second week of January. So, we lost a good 6, even 7 months last year of production. And that hit the exhibition community worldwide very, very significantly. And this was not a U.S. issue with production, because if you look at the numbers in the UK during that period, 75% of all film and television workers were unemployed. So this had a profound impact globally. And, a lot of local unions in different countries all went out in sympathy of WGA and SAG-AFTRA. And, the realities are, if you have your sights and dreams on Hollywood one day, which most talent do, then, you're not going to want to potentially jeopardize that.
Yeah.
So you went out in sympathy, and that's what people did. So we saw, production slowdowns in all of our markets across Europe and in the UK particularly. There were cobwebs at the studios here. It was unbelievable. And, right before Christmas, there was a study done by the smaller cinema operators in the UK, and 45% were operating at a loss, and half of them did not believe they would survive for another 3 months. So this is before a very tough 24. So unfortunately, those are kind of some of the sobering realities. This is something that we recognized last September and made sure that we were well placed when this happened. But, it's still going to be a very challenging year for a lot of companies. I've been in the industry for 35 years, and I don't think I've been as excited about the future and as bullish about the future as I am now. We are going to have an incredible run ahead of us. And, we're doing our best to get ready for it.
And that was my colleague, Rebecca Pahle, interviewing the View International Chief Executive Officer, Tim Richards. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the Box Office Podcast. Earlier, you also heard from Cineplex CEO, Ellis Jacob, and a big thank you to Ellis for joining us on this episode. Again, to hear more from Rebecca and myself on this podcast, don't forget to subscribe. New episodes come out every Thursday, and next Thursday, as we said earlier, we've got a big one, a recap of everything on the global opening weekend of Dune Part 2. Talk to you guys next week.